Hello and welcome to BUZ Banter. I'm Das Hat.
And I'm Sam.
And today we're talking to you about some gaming news.
Yeah. So this news specifically comes from the Take-Two Irrational Studios one. So if any of you don't...
They're doing something important.
They're doing Bioshock Infinite. In case anyone who doesn't know, Irrational is the studio that made the game Bioshock by one of the creative directors is Ken Levine. He's the face of it. He's been in all the interviews. If any of you, just as a quick recommendation, if any of you haven't played Bioshock, play it. Even to today's standards, that game is a masterpiece. That game still looks great, relatively. It still plays great, but okay, back to... so Bioshock Infinite, this is the new big one that he's doing, because they didn't do Bioshock 2.
No.
Another studio did that.
And it showed.
Yeah, it was not the same
really
game.
Showed.
But it still played okay. It was just, it wasn't Bioshock.
Yeah.
It was like, it was good.
It didn't have the atmosphere, it didn't have the feel, it didn't have the characters, it was just very...
Bioshock was here, Bioshock 2 was here.
It was a very nice game.
But anyways, this is their return to, not, well, Bioshock, but it's like a new environment for Bioshock.
Exactly, you're not in Rapture anymore, the underwater city, you're up in the sky!
You're in a place called Columbia, and it's supposed to actually be older. This is, Rapture was the 50s, this is actually the 30s.
Yeah.
So anyways, some interesting news came out of it, and it came from the fact that two people have left.
Two big people. This is very big people.
One is the product director.
Yeah.
Which essentially, I'm assuming he's like the manager. Essentially, he has to run the show.
He has to help run the show. I would assume he's like the main, like sort of producer on the project.
Yeah. And the biggest one is actually the art director, because art is a huge part of the Bioshock name.
Actually, I think that's the only part of the Bioshock name. It's not so much the gameplay that you go to, but like the feel and look of Rapture.
Yeah, but it's not.
And like Columbia, and you see that in the trailers and everything, that the architecture, the environment, and everything, the bits of gameplay.
I just wanted to mention that the gameplay is still amazing in Bioshock. But anyways, the thing that happened with that is they brought the art director from the original game, because that wasn't the art director that left was not the guy who did Bioshock.
Right.
They just brought that guy in now.
Yeah.
By the way, Bioshock is slated to come out next year in March, I believe.
Yeah, Infinite's coming out in...
So there's still a lot of development to be done. Now, I guess you and I were kind of theorizing the fact that, well, why did this happen?
Well, what I want to know is, and this is a critical point, did the art director leave on his own accord, and they brought back the first guy, the guy that worked on the first Bioshock, as his replacement? Or were they replacing him with this guy, and they booted him out? Yeah.
Or did the guy just leave, and like, we're also assuming this might have been underhanded. This could have been a total, like, he wanted to leave, maybe he wanted to do other things, maybe he wanted to be more than an art director, maybe he wanted to design more of the games, like, who knows?
Well, yeah, like, their own motivations aside, basically, the reason I raised that question, whether he left on his own accord or he was forced out, basically speaks to exactly what we can expect from this project. If he was forced out, that means they didn't like the look of this game, that it was either too generic or it didn't feel proper to Bioshock.
Not from the parts they shown, because the parts they shown were amazing. I just like to illustrate that point.
You always put your best foot forward.
Yeah, but it's like, why... Yeah, I mean, we're probably never going to know the reason, but you also have to... I think the other thing was, like, Take-Two being a big company, Irrational being part of Take-Two, you and I were reading the article, they said this thing is going to sell a lot, this is going to bring in a lot of revenue for it. So, like, was he doing something that they were worried about? Maybe something that could have been risky? And they didn't want to risk that for Bioshock? Because technically this is the second Bioshock if you don't include number 2 for this company.
Yeah.
Well, for this game designer.
Yeah.
So it's like, did they not want to risk sales like that? Because I would assume that they'd be comfortable with the Bioshock name at this point.
Well, it's one thing to be comfortable with the Bioshock name, but you saw with the second game that you can have, and you see it time and time again, that you have it based on its name, and its branding is supposed to be all of its advertising, but if it does... what happened with the second game? It didn't have the look, it didn't have the atmosphere, it didn't have any of like the great design that made the first game great.
It was just like Bioshock stepped down.
Exactly.
But here's the thing though, it didn't reach that much, like, it almost sounds like it's almost the same thing that happened with BioWare and Dragon Age 2, where Dragon Age 2, even though it played okay and everything, like it was only a 2-year development game and it felt like it but it was not Dragon Age Origins. Dragon Age Origins is easily one of the best RPGs I've ever played.
Yeah.
And it shows. But it's like, after Dragon Age 2, BioWare had so much skepticism about it, because it was the same developer.
Yeah.
Now, Bioshock 2, there's an excuse. It was not Ken Levine and Irrational doing it. So obviously, it's not going to be the same game. And most people get that.
Well, obviously it's not going to be the same game, but here's my concern for it. It is a very, very different animal than what the first game was.
Oh yeah.
The first game, you dealt with Adam, you dealt with the moral dilemmas in that, and the overall look and feel of Rapture as this dilapidated city and everything underwater, and the various effects you had of that throughout the game.
They put their tone really well. They really set a good tone for
and this is a completely different tone from that.
You're talking about Infinite right
Infinite
now.
Is a completely different tone.
This is what I mean, because it is actually very public knowledge that 2 was not done by Irrational.
Right.
Now, Bioshock Infinite is technically, you can almost consider it their second Bioshock game.
Yes.
Now, are they trying to avoid what happened with Dragon Age 2 with that? Whereas, because Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age 1 were the same developer, but because it was the same developer and that one fell short, they've now gotten so much skepticism, and then it led to the fallout with Old Republic, it led to the fallout with the Mass Effect 3 ending, where if they come up short even just a little bit, they get attacked.
Yeah.
Even though before BioWare, when they made Mass Effect 1 and 2 and they made Dragon Age Origins, they were one of the most beloved developers.
I still love them.
You still love, but there's still a lot of animosity now to the majority public.
Oh, people are going to nitpick on the little bits of a game.
But it still creates a lot of bad PR. But here's the thing: Irrational is also in that same love right now. People love Irrational because they love Bioshock, and they understand that Bioshock 2 was not theirs. And if it fell short, it's not their fault because they had no hand in it.
But now you have that level of expectation that's there, and it could be that these people left simply because they felt that what was expected of them was either unrealistic or or they disagreed with how some of the things were being handled, or they could have been pushed out because other higher-ups didn't like how they were conducting business.
Yeah, because they didn't want Bioshock Infinite to turn out like Dragon Age 2 and then create a whole bunch of animosity for one of their big-name company, for one of the big-name developers.
And they are taking a huge risk with this game.
You technically take a huge risk with any game.
Well, no. This one especially, because you've got the branding name of Bioshock, but you have almost nothing from the original Bioshock. You have some of the gameplay and everything, but the sort of mutagens with the Adam and everything, that's not in it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was going to say, other than the first-person shooting, there's almost nothing of the original game.
Exactly. So in what way is this a Bioshock game? Because it's a much brighter environment. The decor is completely different. The attitude of the people is completely different.
Actually, I was going to say...
The nature of the enemies and the way you navigate the world is completely different.
Those things are somewhat different, but I have to say, it is still... Columbia... The way Ken Levine worded it is that we still have this basically almost like a dystopian world. It's obviously a brighter environment because it's in the sky, so Rapture was under the sea, so obviously it's going to be a dark environment.
Yeah.
And they work that to their advantage for tone.
Yeah.
But one of the things is, like, there are still crazy guys walking around, like the Splicers.
Yeah.
Now, they don't all just automatically attack you until they realize who you are, according to the E3 demo. But it's still the same tone. It's still, like, a similar story.
Which I think is why it makes sense that...
It's still Bioshock?
Well, not that it's still Bioshock. I think that's why it makes sense that they got that they might have gotten rid of the art director and brought in the original back. Because if you want to maintain the same tone in a lighter environment, people underestimate the amount of... attention and the weight of importance that goes into coloring something.
Yeah.
Like, our wardrobes affect our personalities throughout the day. You don't even realize it.
It also affects what people perceive you to be.
Exactly. And so if you want to keep the same sort of dystopian tone, but make it in a bright environment, how in God's name are you going to do that? It's a very difficult thing, because the type of dystopianism that you have in the original Bioshock within the city of Rapture is not the same thing that you can have within the world of Columbia with Infinite. Because it's a brighter environment, you expect a different sort of animal out of it.
Well, one of the things they were doing, and this is, once again, just from what I've seen of the E3 demo, one of the things is that they made the world livelier. There's more people in it, whereas before there's just you, splicers, and the guys you talk to.
So your dystopianism will be less about, look how this society collapsed.
Let me just say,
go.
it's more people, but it's these people. If you actually, did you see the E3 demo?
Yes, I did.
So you saw like how when you were walking around, those people were, there was just one time, they're just beating up a shopkeep, and like, just for no reason. There was an execution happening.
Yeah.
Like, there's some... Like, it's not just the fact that they're around, it's like they're all doing terrible things. Like, one guy gets pushed down the stairs, like, what is this, a monocle? What am I going to do with a monocle? He pushes him down like a flight of stairs.
Yeah, so you have...
And I mean,
Yeah, you essentially have Columbia tearing itself apart. It's like the early stages of this dystopianism, where it's all coming apart now, rather than you coming into it once it's already collapsed. But the thing is, like...
Well, it's
not the same tone.
It's also a more focused story, though, because it's more of a relationship between two characters now.
And again, that's a big difference, and it's a very different way of approaching this, and it doesn't sound like Bioshock.
To me,
it doesn't sound like the original game
But then, keep in mind, this isn't Bioshock 2, this is Bioshock Infinite. This is a spin-off.
It is a spin-off, but it's one... I will say that this does not sound like a game that you can sell on the merit of its own name.
It sounds like they're trying.
And that's what's worrying me. Because you're basically what you're essentially doing is going, alright, I'm going to make a Fast and the Furious movie, but everyone's driving buses. And none of the buses can go faster than 60 miles per hour.
Okay, so you're going with this.
And all of the main characters are morbidly obese.
What's wrong with that?
Will that sell as a Fast and the Furious film? No! But if you actually did that as a comedy, satiring it, yeah, that would work. That would sell. But if you're trying to make a Fast film and nothing's like what you expect from Fast and the Furious...
But I have to say, it's not like nothing's like it. There are a lot of similar elements.
You have similar elements, but you have major differences. And let's be fair, it was the atmosphere and the tone of the original game that won you over to that game. The gameplay was fantastic, but the reason that game is a masterpiece is because it is a work of art, visually, auditorially.
I would like to say that the art, like, people from Columbia look like they could be people from Rapture. Like, the art design looks like they could cross over.
It does look like they could cross over and everything, but it's a much lighter environment. It's during the time that this collapse is happening.
Actually,
I don't think you can keep the same tone.
It's supposed to be afterwards. Like, it's still kind of during the end of it, but it's like, it's not like the initial collapse, like, where they're still prosperous and everyone's happy. It's like everyone's, like, kind of still, like, dilapidated when you get there. Because Columbia goes missing for like 10 years.
Personally, I'm skeptical about it, and having two major players in the development team walk away from this project, if they actually just walked away and they weren't let go, actually just worries me more.
We don't even know how we don't know if they were fired or they quit. We really don't know.
Which is a fair point, but it just adds to my skepticism.
That's the one thing, though, that you're kind of in the minority in this with the whole skepticism thing when it comes to Irrational. But if this was BioWare, would you be and you were still this skeptical about BioWare, would you be in the minority?
Would I be in the minority if I was this skeptical of BioWare? Probably
doing
not.
the same thing.
Well, if they came out with a Mass Effect game that happened only on the moon, and there weren't any branching like romances,
Mass Effect Lunar or something. Yeah, something like
a Mass Effect Crater Explorer. Then yes, I would be obviously very, very concerned.
But here's the thing, but you also got, for some reason, like, the community really has, it's more hatred for a developer after they've done something than it is really for what they're doing. And the reason why I want to bring this up is Guild Wars 2 is, like, super gamey when it comes to being an MMO.
Yeah.
Like how World of Warcraft is.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's doing some things different where everyone's able to heal, they're trying to break the Holy Trinity and everything. But, like, if you hear everything they say, it's like other MMOs have said the same thing, and if it was another company like Blizzard saying they were doing these things, everyone would be groaning. But because it's the guys who do Guild Wars 2, I forgot the studio's name, forgive me. I'm not the biggest Guild Wars fan, but I'm super excited for that game. If it was them doing it, you'd be... the fact that it's the guys doing Guild Wars 2, everyone's like, oh, this is going to be amazing. But if... I know Blizzard for a fact has said the same thing about World of Warcraft, and everyone groaned.
Well, it's not just that everyone groans when a certain developer says it and everything. People...
But it's the fact that it's the same thing.
Well, this is the reason why I maintain a healthy level of skepticism. Every developer has made promises that they could not deliver on. Every single developer has done it.
Well, I was going to say, I'm like, when did Irrational ever do that?
They might with this.
They might. The thing is, you said they have. They
well, alright. Name 4 games Irrational's done.
I can't do that. They've only named one. That's my point. They've only done one.
Exactly. So, like...
If you said take 2, I could do take 2.
Actually, no. Actually, even for that, even for Irrational, they promised a level of, like, moral compass and all of that, which really came down to a single choice, each and every time. It wasn't any sort of grand sprawling...
Kill the little girl or don't kill the little girl?
Exactly. And
well,
it wasn't that big of a moral dilemma. It wasn't anything like what you saw in something like Spec Ops: The Line.
No.
It was literally just be a monster and gain superpowers, or gain superpowers slower and let her run off after you killed her protector. How is that a moral choice? That's like the Star Wars moral choices. It's just like, dark side, light side. I have done nothing in the game that should sway me automatically to one or the other. Or I've done nothing but things on one side, and you still give me the choice to be on the light side.
Well, that's where I say that's more or less the time that they had. Like, that was the constraints from the period that it was made, even though it was only, like, what, 4 years ago? It's still, like, there was no real game that had... There's still no game that has what you're talking about. Except for, like, even Spec Ops wasn't that big. Like, it's still, like...
It offered choice. It didn't offer... Well, it offered 2 or 3 moral dilemmas, but
yeah.
it was of a different nature.
But it was more or less to make you feel... That game's entirely... Like, there's no game that
Go
really
back and watch
does.
our review
Yeah.
about that. That was completely... We could talk about that for another
But, I mean,
15
there's no game that has done that.
No, they haven't, and every time they promise it, I say, you're lying.
But, like, that's still not, like, it's like, that's still something of a moral dilemma. Kill the little girl or don't kill the little girl. It's like...
Kill Vader, fight the Emperor. There's no difference.
Well, killing a little girl is still pretty terrible in my opinion.
Okay, sorry. Kill Vader or save your master as he's being tortured to death by the Emperor. Your choice.
You mean save your son or destroy your master?
No. I'm talking about Force Unleashed at the end of that.
Okay. But what about...
Kota's being tortured.
What about Episode 3? Save your son or kill your master? Or no, let your son die or kill your master. Like, which do you choose?
What? What the hell are you talking about?
Episode 6.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying, that was in the Star Wars universe.
It's such a null moral choice because there's no sort of conflict there.
There is a conflict. He's conflicting with the fact that the dark side, you want him, like, he doesn't want to be with me, therefore I'll let him die.
But that's so obviously not the case!
The way they told it wasn't the case, but the actual situation was the case.
Don't make excuses for the movie using the expanded universe. I do it all the time, and I've started catching myself on it.
That was the expanded. That was just the movie.
No, it wasn't. Just all of a sudden he cares about his son.
Well, he was being conflicted. His son was talking about it. He was trying to conflict him with it. Like saying, listen, I know there's still good in you.
Yeah, and to which...
There's still good in you.
There's still good in you. So will you stand by your master who ruined your life, lied to you about almost everything?
He doesn't actually know any of that, even to the end.
Nah, that's true.
I was just gonna point that out.
Well, he's made his life a living hell.
How so?
Technically, you saw it in Force Unleashed.
Technically, it was Obi-Wan who burned him.
No, you saw it in Force Unleashed. As soon as he gets an apprentice of his own, kill him or I'll kill you both. I just spent 18 years raising this little punk.
But the thing is, he raised him in secret, knowing that the Emperor was going to make him do that, so he knew it was coming.
So he already knows that his boss is a D-bag.
So
and so you're left. Keep working for the D-bag boss.
He knows the rules.
Or let my son die, or save my son.
Anyways, we're getting off topic.
It's just...
We're getting way off topic.
We are horribly off topic. Anyway, so, final thoughts about this?
I really don't know. I need to know more about it. There needs to be more updates for me to really have an opinion of it, because like I said, these guys could have just left for the sake of leaving.
I like to remain skeptical and everything of it, but from what we've seen so far, it does look like a solid game.
I don't know, like I said, this is one of my most anticipated games of 2013. So
As it is with most people.
Yeah, I could have a skewed opinion about this, so...
That's fair enough, but we'll see what happens. Oh, excuse me. So, we will see what happens. Until next time, I'm Das Hat.
I'm Sam.
You've been watching Buzz Banter, and we will see you when we see you.
See ya.
Okay, yeah, I gotta edit out that